Welcome to Yield Fall of Rome, a gloriously fast-paced 4X strategy game where every turn, indeed they are finite, and every decision matters. In Yield Fall of Rome, or Yield for short, it's not just about a quick historical strategy experience, it's really more of a streamlined one. To the point where each unit that you train or hire, indeed one per turn, or maybe a new city that you settle, or building that you build within it with your production, all of those things have such a massive impact on the flow of a game. The technology tree here does as well. The texts themselves focused, of course, around that period, the fall of the Roman Empire, and bought with our currency, just like these tile improvements. But before we get into the detail, real quick here, this video is sponsored by Yield Fall of Rome and Daedalic, because the game has just released in version 1.0, which you can check out and buy by clicking the link in the description down below. And better yet, it's currently 50% off to celebrate the 1.0 release. Now, let's get back to Yield. There are some fascinating, maybe relatively basic things if you've played a 4X game before, and then some really precious details here. Starting from the start, I've settled my city. I've produced a settler, and I'm walking around exploring with my monarch, the 15 health unit, as well as this cute little guy, this little scout. I've found a religious site, one possible source for a crown, and victory in this game, should you not fall to the victim of time, is one measured in crowns. More on that as we move through. For now, of course, the focus, like in any good 4X game, is about expanding out, settling a new city, maybe by the very precious site that I've just claimed for 2 glorious victory crowns. Though as you can see, I'm not alone. Of course, there are many enemies in this world, and should I choose to fight them, they will absolutely fight me back. Each unit, very simply, though there's a lot of strategy underneath the hood, has an attack, defense, and health value, and you'll generally use those 3 values to determine how much damage you do to an enemy, how much you might do back to them in retaliation, that's your defense, and of course, how many hits you can take. Here, I've gained some experience from said fighting, and my ruler, my monarch, can kind of level up here, as you can see, gaining new abilities, extra health, extra strength, the more I fight. And of course, all of this is happening within the wonderfully simple, very strategic city building. There are really just 3 core yields that you need to focus on to grow a city. Its population, 26 dudes, its production, the 30 hammers, and the 0 soon-to-be 1 barrels that is called supply. The latter 2, the hammers and the barrels, will be spent. Hammers on building buildings within the 1 city tile in the center. The barrels need to be spent when you hire units in order to supply them. How you choose to build your buildings, the order you choose to build them in, really depends on 2 things. You need to grow the city. The greater you grow it from tiers 1 through 5, the more buildings you'll have access to. And then secondly, most importantly, these tiles that my glorious little dudes are fighting on, well, these could also be improved, right? And they can be improved in a variety of ways, and it's very fascinating. The way that this game blends the natural yield of a tile with adjacency bonuses. It's a little bit restrictive, but very rewarding when you get it right. First step, of course, settle a new place. Once you've done that, you'll need the prerequisite technology bought with your currency, so do spend it wisely. Then you need to look at the tiles, what you've got on them, and what you can place next to them. Here I'm placing a stoneworks next to 2 quarries. The quarries require the naturally occurring resource mountainous underneath them. The stoneworks can only be built next to one of those, so I can't just place these down everywhere. You'll also notice here, watching it back again, that I receive double the reward of a normal stoneworks, for this one is next to 2 quarries. And that's where the adjacency factor comes in. In this case, adding twice the population, as well as twice the spendable hammers and income, thanks to it being next to 2 quarries. This adjacency plays out for every yield through every unlock. And so the order in which you approach the technology tree matters as well. Need to quickly connect 2 cities with roads? Well, you're gonna need to rush roads, and that's going to cost you income. Meanwhile, maybe there's a precious religious site you need to take care of in order to get 1, 2, 3, however many crowns you've set it to in a custom game, by the way, in order to get those victory points. The point that I'm making here is that the tile adjacencies, what you choose to build, where you choose to build it, matters so much to the growth of a city, of any settlement, in a game where there are relatively few turns, right? It really is crucial, and yield does a very good job at making me focus on those 3 core yields, and then every now and again stepping back and designing the broader city, placing the hamlets to boost its population, or maybe turning to the more rural improvements. Regardless of what I'm pursuing, there is also a milestone, an objective, a culture policy, a religious policy, a legal policy that you can unlock by essentially pursuing that pathway. There's a lot of power here if you can unlock it. Taking a slightly closer look on the right-hand side, army, the military one. In this case, I need to kill 5 units to improve my military and unlock a policy. The policies will vary game to game. No game is ever the same, including the random map generation and the victory conditions. Policies will give you boosts towards getting your crowns. And these crowns will end a game, by the way. As soon as you meet the required amount, the game is over and you win. Holding an objective on the map, killing your opponent's monarch, building massive cities. The objectives change depending on the mode and depending perhaps on your playstyle. I believe they scale based on perhaps things like the size of the map, the overall number of players, and the number of turns, and they hit a whole load of different things. So there really is an opportunity to reach one or multiple of these policies and milestones and surge yourself toward victory. The turn timer is always down in the bottom right-hand corner next to the end turn button. You'll notice in this game it's 25 turns, and this is where the fact that your resources, particularly your supply, your hammers, are built up cumulatively and then spent matters. Do you choose to hold off for a little bit? Beeline toward a certain technology, spending your cumulative income, the third key resource on that, or maybe you actually just focus on city building. No units out there at all, just improve your tiles, harvest your tiles, and try and get the best adjacencies you can. This is all very challenging inside of a very limited number of turns. Again, 50 now in this game, 25 in the one prior. I believe a maximum in skirmish mode around 80, a minimum frightfully low. Decisions really do matter. I've said it before. I might even say it one more time in the outro. I can't stress it enough. It's one of the key deciding factors that separates Yield Fall of Rome out from most other things that I've played within this space. I think of it a little bit like a game that has been inspired by the likes of Civilization and kind of merged with something like Hexarchy or Battle for Polytopia. It takes the kind of grand exploration, maybe extermination, all of the 4 X's from a game like Civilization and merges it with something like Hexarchy or Battle for Polytopia. It creates this experience where it doesn't feel too short. Everything is sort of just about right to fit the pacing, certainly with that kind of central number of turns, my personal favorite in and around 50, yet is appealing enough to drag me back in again. Speaking of which, let's talk a little bit about the modes. Single player wise, campaign, challenge, and skirmish are your 3 modes. Solo, cooperative, or competitive. Likewise, speaking of competitive, if you've got some friends or rivals to play against, multiplayer is available here too, with asynchronous modes, should you need to fit them in and around that busy little life of yours. Here you can see what I think is just a glorious campaign menu, by the way. Looks absolutely fantastic and kind of reflects the granular texture that the game has implemented on its hexagonal tiles within the game. Each one of these campaigns, again, has a procedurally generated map, so you can play the same one and have a different experience each time. Building on top of that, more importantly, the policies, the milestones, and the pathway to getting crowns. The pathway to victory is also changed up quite a lot from campaign to campaign, from mission to mission. It's incredibly satisfying to play through. A lot of them are fairly short as well, so you can make a lot of progress in not a whole load of time. And then as you move your way through, maybe you up the difficulty, or maybe you take one of the campaigns and customize it a little bit. Fortunately, there is flexibility here built into the options. If campaign mode isn't maybe your thing, then you could turn to the skirmishes or the challenges. The challenges themselves start off fairly small, and they'll hold your hand as well with a nice little tutorial to teach you about goodie hunts, settling cities, points of interest, buildings, all of that great stuff. As you move through, they'll become more advanced. And if you're looking for a totally sandbox experience, and probably my personal favorite, it does tend to be the mode that I always fall back on, then skirmish is likely for you. Ramping up to epic-sized maps within the experience, maybe turning wrapping on so you can move from the right-hand side around to the left. More importantly, though, I'd like you to just take a quick little look at the objectives, the Romans on the map, the religious sites, and crucially, how many crowns you get for achieving each of these little, almost micro-victory conditions. And it's these, in my view, that provide truly the flexibility, right? Scale your turns from some tiny little number right the way up to 80, and then set your victory. This is kind of also the way that the other game modes get away with being so dang replayable. It's the fact that the objectives are so fine, right? Build the Colosseum, massive wonder. Build a metropolis, big tiered city. Kill a monarch, an enemy unit, their leader. Maybe you get lucky, maybe you can't find one. What about things like most kills, most metropolises, most population? These victory conditions reward short, sharp play, as well as building an empire throughout the concise and dynamic games that Yield delivers. Aside from the very early campaigns, the default experience provides generally a pretty good challenge, even on something like easy or normal difficulty. Crank it up to hard, and I would say, if you're anything like me, and probably most of you are, it's going to be a challenge. Yeah, it's not going to be easy. So maybe you can tweak the campaign to your advantage to try and make the most of it. Overall, I think that, especially considering its very accessible price point, this game, Yield Fall of Rome, provides a great amount of replayability inside of a short, sharp, fun 4X package. In my experience, the 1.0 build has been running very well, and really this is kind of a quintessential game of easy to pick up, difficult to master. Thank you very much for joining me today. Thank you for watching, and thanks again to Daedalic and Yield Fall of Rome for sponsoring this video. You can check it out using that link down below. Thank you so much for being here. See you wonderful people next time.